If you're building a personal brand on Instagram but not making any money from it, it's because your brand isn't giving premium, it's giving basic. The truth is, if you build your brand the right way to position yourself to make money, you should be able to ask your audience and they should buy. And if that isn't happening, you're not missing out on some crazy marketing hack or some trendy content strategy. You're just not making money because your audience doesn't trust you. So today, I'm gonna teach you how to build an Instagram brand so premium that you'll never need to sell again. The truth is, what makes a brand premium is a feeling. But there's actually a specific principle that makes a brand feel premium, and it's not what you think. So I thought about this a lot, and I said to myself, what is really the difference between a Spirit Airlines and business class on Singapore Airlines, which I've flown both, right? One just has a different feeling. It evokes a different emotion. And that is when I started to remind myself and think about the saying that says, money talks, wealth whispers. So what I mean by this is that brands that are premium, they don't have to overly communicate what they're trying to tell you. It's kind of like that saying that says people will never remember what you say, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And I think this is so important when it comes to branding, marketing, and definitely selling high-ticket products and services. You want to make sure that the feeling your content evokes is one that makes people feel she knows her worth, she's confident, and she knows what she's talking about. So premium brands could sometimes be a little bit quieter, but they're deeper and they're richer. Think of the word decadent, like a rich piece of chocolate. So we've all heard that saying, and the truth is, money can't buy taste. So unfortunately, if you don't have class and you are a premium, just because you make more money doesn't mean your content is all of a sudden going to feel premium. Your content needs to be able to communicate that you don't need approval. You know exactly who you are, what you stand for, and absolutely what you do not stand for. So if it's not just about aesthetics, what is it actually about, and how could you put this into practice? So think about a Christmas gift, right? When you get a gift at Christmas, are you the kind of person that wants 20 things for $10? Or one thing for $200. Now, it's not to say one is better than the other because once again, Spirit Airlines is a very successful airline as much as Singapore Airlines is. They just have a different target market. So what we have to think about when we think about luxury and premium brands and premium marketing, messaging, and positioning, we have to remind ourselves that premium brands have constraints. So there's tight color range, repeated silhouettes, and they limit instead of add more. So immediately when I click on the Princess Polly website, I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack. This thing's popping up in my face, the cookies policy, look at how loud this marketing is. I mean, I'm like, what's going on? There's so many categories, there's so many things to choose from. And I think you might feel this feeling of abundance, but the truth is it's overwhelming. Now, if we look at a website like Giulia, for example, one of my favorite websites, it's very simple, right? So you look here and it's simple. It's black and white, no loud models, nothing loud, very simple. There's cohesion when it comes to the colors, and things are actually grouped in a sequential order of things that are gonna match next to each other. Now, there's a quick little pop-up, but I could easily exit out. There's nothing flashing on the screen. And what I also like here is that you can tell this is a very curated website and a very curated capsule of things. And what I think is also really interesting is that immediately you can see the prices and you can say, hey, is this gonna be for me or is this not for me? Versus here, you know, it's very loud, it's lots of colors, bright colors, right? Versus something like this, it's a little bit more with the repeated silhouettes. It's a little bit quieter and it's kind of just giving, I know my worth and I know my price. This is for you or this is not for you, and you can find out immediately. So this is exactly what I mean by constraints are actually what make a brand feel premium, and on even simpler terms, less is more. And if you want to learn exactly how to make your personal brand not just premium, but also profitable, I created a free 7-day email course where you can turn your personal brand into profit by selling premium priced offers. all you have to do is click the first link in the description, and I'll give you everything you need to know about selling high ticket offers and actually converting organic content into sales. So now that you understand the power of constraint, it's important for us to look at your messaging, because there's this other element that communicates premium versus cheap, and it's not what you think it is. So a core belief that I hold for my brand is that timeless is better than trendy. Okay, so let's take a second to look at my website, right? It takes a second to load. Yes, there's some moving elements, but it's not loud, it's simple. There's a color scheme and a color code. And the language is truly speaking to a premium buyer, from personal brand to profitable business, right? High-level business people don't just care about money, they care about profit, what they actually take home at the end of the day, right? This is the place where content creators turn their skills into a scalable online business. You can see the verbiage like scalable, profitable, sustainable. These are the words that are going to resonate with high ticket and high level buyers, right? So this is extremely powerful, right? Because we have testimonials, we have visuals, but it's not super loud and super in your face. So I think what's important is that I made my website a year ago, but it still feels extremely relatable, timeless, and present. And I think that that's super important because especially if you're trying to build a scalable business, you want to make sure that your content frameworks and your marketing can be repeated, even if you have fresh and new angles, which is something that I talk about in a lot of my other videos. So the very first thing that I want you to do when it comes to your messaging is I want you to understand who is your brand actually for and what is the feeling that you want them to evoke. So what I want you to do is I want you to actually create a Pinterest board. So if you look at my Pinterest and we go into my Pinterest page right here, you can see here that I have a board that is called Architect. So this is how I want my life to feel, right? So I look at this, I look at love letters, I look at Cartier, I look at colorful, delicious food, I look at travel, right? I think about the aesthetic that I want to have for my family and my dog and my house, right? But even more so, make a mood board for your business. So for example, right? Creator School is the school of what I believe, right? We have our academy, we have, some other products, but I think of it kind of like this schooling system. So I created this board called Creator School. Now, it's not just about visuals and pictures and the branding and campaigns. It's actually about pulling inspiration. So for example, for me, I'm extremely inspired by Steve Jobs. So by seeing a picture of Steve Jobs, it reminds me to stay fresh and innovative and creative. So I think oftentimes we look at business mentors and videos like this, and we just think, what are the tactics? What are the strategies? But I want you to actually start leaning into what is the feeling, right? So what about when Steve Jobs created the first version of Apple, created the first version of the Mac, right? It reminds me that you have to start somewhere, and you're not going to be on iOS 16. You're going to start with iOS 1, right? So I think that this is really important to kind of curate this energy and this vibe. So this is really important because if you know how you want people to feel, then you can communicate that in your messaging. So for your messaging, you have to ask yourself, do I want to be the kind of person that beats around the bush or just kind of tells people what they want to hear? Or do you actually want to cut through the noise and be a little bit controversial? You want to be blunt, right? So you have to know your tone and know the kind of person that you're trying to attract. So I think a lot of people go right into hiring a web designer or hiring a branding or a logo person. But if I could do it over again, what I would do is I would get really clear on the feeling first and the emotion, and then actually go out and build a brand deck, hire people on, and things like that. I actually didn't do any sort of branding and development until about 3 years into my business. I just pretty much did it all myself or just hired somebody for a quick project. But once I got really clear on the feeling and the emotion and where I saw it headed, that's when I spent $10,000 on just a brand deck. Because once you get a brand deck, you can actually carry that through everywhere else. So anytime I hire a video editor, anytime I hire a graphic designer, whatever it is, I just give them the brand deck because it's this is how my brand is meant to feel. It's meant to be articulated, and this is the messaging and the positioning, and now that essence can carry through in everything that I do. So now that you understand the psychology, you understand messaging, I want to show you how you can actually weave this into your content strategy so when people land on your page, they feel that same emotion like we did when we pulled up those few Instagram accounts. So first things first, anti-seduction is the real seduction. So think about when you're going on a date, right? It's not like you go on your first date and they're asking you to sleep with them. They're getting to know you a little bit better. They're asking you some questions. There's some good conversation. And what makes a good date versus a bad date, right? They're curious. They're present. They're paying attention, right? They're not trying to seduce you in the first moment. So you want your brand to feel exactly the same way. Think about actually flirting through your content. Don't just give it all away for free because then there's no payoff. There's no retention. There's no reason why they should keep staying. And that's when people are just going to jump right off the screen. So you also want to use bold words. In a world that we're living in right now where information is so accessible, the only thing that is going to make you stand out is your uniqueness and actually being a little bit different. Now, I think there's a strategy behind actually doing this because what happens is that sometimes you're too much like Dear Diary and this doesn't feel like a business account at all. But then the other times it's a little bit too polished and people don't actually know who you are. So the magic is gonna be in the middle. So remember, mass content is always going to attract with vanity, something that is relatable for everyone. But if you're here, you're building a curated high-ticket business and you're not actually here to be everything for everyone. So think about the 48 Laws of Power. And if you haven't read that book, I would highly recommend it. You want your brand to speak quiet confidence. You don't have to tell people I am the best. They should just know it by seeing your results and your outcomes. So what actually makes you trust somebody? They've done the thing that you want to do. Because one of my favorite sayings from Tony Robbins is, if you want to be successful, you just have to find people who have already achieved that success and model them. So there's one more element that ties this all together, and it's like the ribbon to the present. And it's why some brands lose their premium positioning immediately and others can sustain it for years to come. So you have to really understand who is the audience you're trying to attract. So for example, just about a year ago, I had really playful content. It was around virality and trends, and it just kind of was attracting this younger, get-rich-quick demographic. But it made sense because that is the messaging that the content was putting out. Once I got really clear on my brand, on my ideal client avatar that has evolved, if you haven't evolved your avatar but your business has evolved, I really would invite you to go back and do that again. That's for another video. But you have to think about, what is this specific kind of person going to be attracted to? So for example, when I was first starting out, I got into coaching and consulting and courses by the get-rich-quick, passive income, overnight success, digital nomad life. And I did that for a while. And if you even just look at my personal website still, it still reflects that. But when I wanted to rebrand and launch Creator to Cash Flow, that's when I decided that this is actually for a more advanced avatar. This is for serious business owners, it's for niched experts, and it's for people who are already successful but actually want to get to their next level of success. So what's the difference there? Big flashy income claims actually just degrades my authority at this level, but there's a way that you could still make it tasteful without saying, here's how much money I made in this many days and here's how you can do it too. So I basically had to restructure my entire marketing strategy for the new up-level avatar that my business had evolved to. So the lesson here is that people are going to rise to the level of your standards, so you have to make sure that you set them and articulate them clearly. And finally, the last piece of this all is trust. I just hopped off a sales call the other day and the guy was on the phone and he was like, honestly, I booked this call because I trust you. I watched hours of your YouTube videos and I can tell you're the real deal. And I really got thinking about that because I think this is something that a lot of people in this space are always thinking, well, how do I build trust? And the way you build trust is just genuinely over time, right? Think of that saying, trust could take years to build, but seconds to break. So what makes a brand trustworthy? Cohesion. I want you to feel the same thing you feel in this YouTube video that you feel when you're a client. I want you to not just be like, oh, it was one thing to actually get into the program, and then it's another thing on the other side, right? And then results, not just the results of your clients, but your own testimonial and results. I don't think I even have to say this anymore, because if you're watching this is definitely not you, but do not be posting or teaching about something you haven't actually achieved yourself many times over. So for example, helping people get to 100 to 250K a year in their business and get their business to that stage, to me feels like I could do it in my sleep, because I've been making $1 million a year for at least 3 years in a row. And I've been making 6 figures a year for 5 years in a row, right? So the way that I want you to think about it is, don't just try to teach something that you just learned yesterday. Authority needs to be built over time, and trust is actually built through results and transparency. So here's what I want you to take away from this video. Building a premium Instagram brand isn't about posting more or having the fanciest graphics or even the most expensive branding. It's about understanding the psychology about what makes something feel expensive. When you master these principles, you stop competing on price and you actually start commanding premium rates, and you start attracting way better clients. So if you take one thing away from this video, let it be this. Before you put anything out into the world, ask yourself, how do I want the consumer of this piece of content to feel after they read it or after they watch it? And most importantly, you want to build a brand that outlasts trends and algorithms and whatever's hot this week. So I actually created you a free 7-day email course to show you how you can build a premium but also profitable personal brand in the next 7 days. If you click the first link in the description, I'll go ahead and I'll send you day 1 so you can start implementing this right now. And even better yet, if you actually want me and my team's eyes on your business, we take a small handful of clients every single month where we help them build and scale a premium signature offer and build a personal brand that actually makes money and is actually profitable at the end of the month. So if you're an online coach, you're a course creator, you're a niche expert, or even just an online service provider, we want to show you how you can sell more high-ticket offers with organic social media content in less than 2 hours a week. So you could check out for that link in the description as well. And finally, my last piece here, if you want to learn how to turn premium content into high-ticket clients, you're going to want to go ahead and watch this video next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.